If Canada were to be able to supply, let's say, double the amount of oil that it is right now, is there a market in China for that?
We've got a lot going on here. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we've got, well, a bunch of things moving here. We've got Donald Trump bringing together all these world leaders and signing a peace deal between the Chips and Hummus crew and Israel. We've got China saying that they're going to drop tariffs if Canada drops tariffs. Let's jump into this. We're seeing Donald Trump sign a peace deal, which is historic. The left can say whatever they want, but Donald Trump has got these two to agree to a peace deal. And yet, what do we still see in Canada? Blocking the streets and banging the drums. Tamara Lich and Chris Barber just got their 18 months house arrest for doing the exact same thing. So there needs to be a time here where Canadians file a class action lawsuit against the government, against the judge, against someone, because this two-tier policing must end. These people are blocking the streets in a much worse fashion, banging drums, loud megaphones. There's nothing different here except they intimidate Canadians. And why are they doing this? There is a peace deal. Go home.
President Trump is participating in an historic ceremony to formalize the peace deal that he brokered between Israel and Hamas. 20 world leaders, including Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, are all.
Look how miserable Mark Carney is. Same with Macron. They both look so miserable. These two guys and Keir Starmer recognized Palestine as a state, going against the wishes of Donald Trump, hurting the negotiations, intentionally hurting the negotiations, and Trump still got the job done. The leftists can have all sorts of meltdowns as they want. Trump got the job done. Hate the guy, it doesn't matter. He got the job done. What do they have to say to this now?
So there it comes after the last 20 surviving Israeli hostages were freed from Hamas following 738 days in captivity overnight. We also saw hundreds of Palestinian prisoners released by Israel today as part of this peace deal. Also today, Israel is expecting to receive the remains of 4 Israeli hostages. Israel's defense minister says they're committed to ensuring the return of all 28 hostages who've died, saying if Hamas does not, it is a failure to meet the commitments of the peace deal. The ceremony in Egypt capping off a historic trip for President Trump, who also met with some hostage families and gave a speech before the Israeli parliament known as the Knesset earlier today.
I mean, look how miserable Carney looks here.
This took 3,000 years to get to this point. Can you believe it? And it's going to hold up, too. It's going to hold up.
We've got another angle here. You can see Mark Carney's face also. This one shows Macron's face. They wanted to fearmonger this thing and have it keep going and going and going. Look at these guys. They look so unimpressed Trump signing this deal.
Okay.
Is that because now there isn't a reason for these people to be protesting in our streets anymore? And they wanted that to be happening in our country? With these 3 buffoons trying to keep this conflict going, doing whatever possible to go against Donald Trump and the Americans, Donald Trump made a fool of them. Here we have him shaking Macron's hand here, just manhandling the guy. He just keeps jerking him in. Donald Trump does this as a power move. He keeps yanking someone around because he wants to show them who's in charge. Also making Macron look like a fool. This is going around here. People showing his hand. Obviously, there's some levels put on this to kind of make it a little more extreme. But Donald Trump just absolutely crushing his hand, sending a message, don't go against Donald Trump and the Americans. And that's exactly what Macron, Starmer, and Mark Carney did. Now, Mark Carney being invested in America, I'm sure Donald Trump knows this. Didn't really come after Carney today, but he did slip up and call Mr. President.
The president called and he wanted to know if it's worthwhile. He knew exactly what it was. He knew the importance. Where's Canada, by the way? Where are you? I appreciate you being here very much, Mr. President. Fantastic. Fantastic.
Right. I'm glad you upgraded me to president.
Oh, did I say?
Great stuff. It's good. I started.
Please say didn't.
So a little hot mic moment caught there. Carney saying, I'm glad you upgraded me to president. Donald Trump saying, oh, did I do that? At least I didn't call you governor. Let's just look at that again and just look at this body language. This is like 2 buddies having some fun.
Thanks. You going back?
Oh, I'm glad you upgraded me to president.
Oh, did I say?
Great stuff. It's good. I started.
Please say didn't.
Great stuff. That was great.
Well, at least I didn't say governor. Look at this. So he's giving the little slap there, a little whisper, a couple of guys having fun. Donald Trump wants Mark Carney in power because it makes America stronger. Are they in this together? It's what I've been saying from the start. Something's funny here. Mark Carney, 91% invested in American stocks. Was this planned from the start? Canada's getting duped here. And by the way, I should say, there's nothing wrong with what Trump is doing here. He's fighting for his own country, America. The problem is Mark Carney is weak and serving his own self-interest, which is being invested in America. Why do we have a guy invested in America who doesn't care about Canada running Canada? Carney couldn't wait to tell Trump about the mistake, shows weakness, classic self-centered Laurentian elitism, trying desperately to be noticed. I mean, Carney just wanted to have a moment here to feel some sort of relevance talking to Trump. And Trump knew getting him in, I don't know whether he knew for sure that he was invested in America or it would just be easier to walk all over him and not have to deal with a strong conservative leader like Pierre Poilievre would be. Poilievre would be fighting for Canadians and securing a strong deal on the same side. It'd be easier negotiating. Donald Trump knows he would have to negotiate with Pierre Poilievre. He's not doing that with Mark Carney. And Carney's winning and Trump's winning because they're both invested in America. Meanwhile, we've got Keir Starmer getting humiliated just like Macron did. So look at Donald Trump here. He looks for Starmer. He gets to come up and then he just turns his back on him and starts talking again at the podium. Like, this is embarrassing stuff. The whole world watching.
United Kingdom. Where's United Kingdom? Where's our friend? Where? Come here. Is everything going good?
Very good.
It's very nice that you're here. These people all came in like 20-minute notice, and I think it's fantastic. And we have so many others, and just so many others. And
this is hilarious. He says, everything going good, good. And he just turns around. Carney even laughs. Just look at Carney on the right side here.
Come here. Is everything going good?
Very good.
It's very nice that you're here. These people all came in like 20-minute notice. And I think it's fantastic. And we have so many.
Even Carney knows that's embarrassing. Everything going good, then turns his back to him. He wanted to humiliate the guy after him, once again betraying Donald Trump. Don't go against America. Starmer's face of rejection is a classic. Yeah, he looks so defeated here.
People all came in like.
Look at his face here. He's like, what's going on, Donald? With this peace deal being signed, you know what happened in Gaza today? Hamas brought out about 10 people who they say worked with Donald Trump and Israel and are traitors. They lined them up, they put them on their knees, they blindfolded them, and they pew-pewed them all at the same time in the back of the head. So much for a peace deal. The barbarians, the chips and hummus barbarians, need to be wiped out. After the peace deal in Egypt, we have this one here, Mark Carney celebrating Thanksgiving. That's right, posting this just a couple hours ago. Ryan Gerritsen catching this one says, this Thanksgiving, we're grateful for members of our Canadian Armed Forces serving abroad. While most Canadians gather with loved ones, they stand on guard, sacrificing time, their families to protect us. He's circling this guy because he went through Mark Carney's Twitter account and found that Mark Carney reused this post from just a few months ago, back in August. It's the same guy. If you look here, the same guy, same red beard. Also look at her, the blonde with the black hair tie, and the orange juice here that's half full. And if we go back to the other one, which is from just 3 hours ago, and same thing, the same guy with the red beard, you got the same black hair tie, blonde hair, and you can see the same orange juice that is half full. So Mark Carney reusing his appearance from 3 months ago, posting it today. It's disingenuous. It's an awful look. He's not there with them right now. He's trying to pretend to look like he is. He's not with the troops. This is dishonest. As Ryan says, looks like Carney is recycling footage from a trip in August to make it look like he stopped by visit service members this Thanksgiving. Nothing is real with this guy. Yeah, nothing is real. He took Trudeau's BS to a whole new level. I wouldn't expect anything less from this guy. And speaking of Trudeau, what's he up to? Well, it looks like he's shacking up with Katy Perry on a yacht. Here they are getting all handsy. This guy destroyed our countries. Now he's playing on a yacht with Katy Perry. While he's playing on a yacht now, this guy hasn't paid for his sins, his crimes against our country. Where do we start? SNC-Lavalin scandal? He needs to be charged for that. He needs to be charged for a lot of things. Once we get conservatives in power, his playtime will be over. Moving ahead, there's more back and forth on this F-35 order coming from America.
Canada made a deal with the U.S. in 2023 to purchase 88 American-made F-35 fighter jets. But with an initial batch of 16 currently in production, the federal government announced in the spring it was reviewing the remaining deal. Despite a summer deadline to find potential alternatives, there's still no new timeline for a decision. The U.S. has signaled the bilateral defense alliance between Canada and the U.S. could be in jeopardy if Canada reneges on the plan.
This is the kind of deal where if Carney does this, it doesn't look good for him because it's giving more business to America. He has to wrap this into a deal for Canada, but then he doesn't want to get a deal because he's got to keep Trump as the boogeyman for the next election. So he's just keeping this in limbo. Another thing to note about the F-35 Lightning Canadian procurement deal, these are being built by Lockheed Martin, as in the same company Mark Carney's invested in. So while he's saying that he's looking at Europe and all this kind of stuff, I don't think he's going to do that, because if Lockheed Martin gets the rest of that contract, it's good for his own bank account. Once again, another direct conflict of interest. Let's add that one to the list. Moving over to China. So they had the Chinese ambassador to Canada here talking about canola and Chinese EV tariffs. And they said straight up, they will remove the canola tariffs, $43 billion Canadian canola industry. They will drop those tariffs essentially for nothing, because Canada's EV market from China is nothing. And they will straight up drop this 1-to-1. What will Mark Carney do? The only reason why the Liberals brought in, Justin Trudeau brought this in, is because the Americans wanted these EV tariffs. Right now, the Americans are tariffing us. Why not just drop them and save the canola industry? This is a no-brainer. After BYD came to Australia, Tesla cut its prices, proof that competition works in favor of consumers. Tariffs, on the other hand, usually just protect the interest of greedy businesses. Canada doesn't sell these Chinese vehicles, so there's no point to keeping this tariff on, which is destroying our canola industry. They openly say that on here. They will drop it immediately. And then Vasi goes on to ask about if China wants more oil from Canada, brings up the new pipeline idea from Alberta over to the BC coast.
Exporting more oil and more gas, more conventional energy to China. There's a debate right now about a second pipeline, for example, to carry oil from Alberta to BC. If Canada were to be able to supply, let's say, double the amount of oil that it is right now, is there a market in China for that?
The energy.
So he goes on a big rambling answer, doesn't really answer. He kind of says, oh, we want economic prosperity, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Vasi asks him again and asks him to be straight, and this is what he has to say.
Can I put a fine point on it? Is there appetite in China for more Canadian crude oil?
China encourages more cooperation and investment in the energy sector between the Chinese companies and the Canadian counterparts. As long as Canada's energy products are market competitive, the door of the market of China will be open.
So they basically said they'll buy more of our oil as long as it's a competitive price. So the market is there. So all we need is to remove the bad laws. Then proponents will want to come in and build it because they know the market is already there. Now, we already know the market's there. The market's all over the world. But China basically told us there's a market there. So David Eby can't argue against this. I mean, why would he argue against his own masters? But let's jump over to this panel now, where Vasi's talking about pipelines here, and it gets into a very heated debate. So we've got Scott Reed, Liberal, Corey Tenecki, Conservative, Doug Ford, Conservative. And this lady here is NDP.
Scott, I'll start with you, because what really stuck out to me from the Prime Minister's comments today was kind of how different they were from the Federal Energy Minister the day before, who testified before the Senate and was very much like, this ain't my problem. Alberta's got to convince BC to get on board. The Prime Minister didn't do any of that deflecting, and really, to me, did not rule out the possibility of this happening. Why do you think that is?
Because I think he's playing it smart. I think, by saying that he remains open to the pipeline proposal, by saying that he even remains open to the possibility, depending upon circumstances, that he might move on the tanker ban. I think he is trying to carefully manage what has been brought forward as clearly a provocation, not just a proposal, but a provocation by Danielle Smith. I mean, she's literally just pulled the pin on this grenade, thrown it over, tried to land it in Carney's lap. And I think by taking the position he has, Prime Minister is very carefully putting the pin back into the grenade and handing it over to Alberta again and saying, here, Danielle Smith, I think you may have dropped this. I think it's smart. Ultimately, this thing is going to come to a head. There will or will not be a proposal. There will or will not be consideration of all the policies surrounding it. But it's smart for the Prime Minister to not close the door, because he then robs Danielle Smith of the ability to say, my God, this is an affront to Alberta, and evidence, therefore, that Canada just does not exist. After 158 years, I think we can say safely that Canada exists, that Canada works.
Canada's not working right now. And so I partially agree with his take there. That is what Carney's doing. He handed that grenade back to Daniel Smith carefully because Carney doesn't want to deal with this. He wants to pretend that he's going to be doing these things, and he wants to pretend he can get conservatives on board to vote for him. And I'm sure he did pull some conservatives that were in the middle there leaning back and forth, and he tricked them. But he's not going to build a pipeline. Most likely not a new one. And if he does, it'll be Keystone, which is already mostly built in Alberta. Americans just have to build their side of it, and he'll take the credit for that. But if he does that, then he'll wrap that in with the Pathways project, which he's already invested in. It has to push to his Stripe shares where he's got the carbon credit system. So Carney wins either way. It doesn't matter. And even if nothing happens in Canada and our economy tanks, he's invested in America. He's protected. So he'll stay buddy-buddy with Donald Trump. He's going to keep pushing this whole carbon system here to try greatly enriching himself here to join the billionaires clubs, like his buddies, like the Desmarais family, the Irving Oil family, the McCain family, all these billionaires that he's friends with. But he set this up in a way that he wins no matter what. But in certain directions, he'll win a lot more.
See the Prime Minister refusing to take the bait. I think that's smart.
Do you think that's what's happening, Corey?
No, I don't. I think this is watching the Liberal Party federally tear itself apart a little bit over these issues. Now, to listen to Carney during the election campaign, pipelines were very much on the table, and I think you heard a bit of that in his press conference. But you got to cross balance that with parts of the former Trudeau government that still exist, including within his cabinet, and new additions like Gregor Robertson, someone who's from the far left of the BC NDP. Traditionally, who are vehemently anti-pipeline. Stephen Guilbeault is one of the biggest and longest-standing environmental radicals in this country. These guys are part of the Trudeau team and that ethos that are diametrically opposed to this stuff. Carney is more like Harper, frankly, in terms of some of the policies and paths he's been pursuing and what you're seeing play out in real time.
I don't agree with this either. Carney's not like Harper. Let's get real. Carney is all about this net zero agenda. He's pretending to be conservative to trick people, but he's not going to be rolling out conservative policies. It's all lies.
Time is the contradiction between those two sides of the Liberal Party, the Liberal Party of Trudeau versus the Liberal Party of Carney. And I'm increasingly thinking it's irreconcilable without one part of that party being exited at the back.
Do you think, like Corey, that in this instance, at the federal level among the Liberals, that those differences are irreconcilable?
Well, I can tell you without equivocation that anyone who served in the Rachel Notley cabinet was foursquare behind the Trans Mountain expansion because of what it has actually delivered both to Albertans in terms of royalty revenue and incremental other revenues and to GDP uplift for the entire country. What Carney is doing out here is actually really smart. He's getting out from under the old intellectual cul-de-sac that we've been driven into around pipeline debates, and he's actually reflecting a new Liberal approach to this, but also a new BC NDP approach to this. This is not the BC NDP of 10 years ago, not at all. Premier Eby has been pretty clear that he's happy with LNG expansion. He's happy to dredge the port to make sure more boats more often can take commodities out of that port. He has even said, let's fill the TMX pipeline, or let's even expand it if necessary. So this is a different electoral coalition for the BC NDP.
That's not what's going on. If David Eby really wanted to do that, then they would already have a deal going with that. David Eby only cares about LNG because it enriches First Nations, and there's a lot of corrupt chiefs. I was talking with some people over Thanksgiving here, talking about First Nations, and the everyday First Nation person, they're not getting the money that comes down from the government that goes to the chiefs. A lot of these chiefs, not all of them, but some of them are very corrupt. They stuff this money in their pocket. The money disappears. Meanwhile, the members of their bands, they don't have proper roads, proper clean drinking water, and it's just a problem that keeps going on and on. Why does it keep going? Because the chiefs don't have any mandate to actually provide clean drinking water. That's why we need to stop all payments and all Canadians get treated equal. The government will step in and provide clean drinking water and paved roads just like everyone else gets, and the chiefs get no more money. That's what we should be doing. But unfortunately, there's not enough courage in this country to say that, because criticizing reconciliation is such a voodoo thing that no one is supposed to do do it all. Can't question anything when there's billions of dollars involved. But I don't care. I'm not a mayor. I'm not a politician. I just speaking the truth. And as I pointed out in a previous video, David Eby complains about the pristine BC coast going to be ruined and all this stuff. Meanwhile, they have a dirty coal facility right at the port of Prince Rupert. Every time it rains, there's all that acidic heavy metals going right into the ocean. They don't care. Why? Because 10% of that, when it was bought by a private owner, 10% was given to First Nations. It's just another grift among the laundry list that we have in our country.
Different incentives and a different Liberal Party. Mr. Carney's actually been really smart here. He has tried to elevate this conversation so that it doesn't drive into the same old dead-end corners that it used to. And he has set the stakes as there needs to be a private sector proponent. There needs to be Indigenous participation. And the fact is,
Why does there need to be Indigenous participation? Because the chiefs need to make more money? The band members don't get it. So why?
West Coast Pipeline, you can repeal all the environmental laws you want. You can pass an act of parliament that declares climate change a hoax and make it legal to dump mercury in the river. You will still have Section 35 of the Constitution in your way, and both the Indigenous self-government organizations along the pipeline route, but also at the terminus, have been pretty clear on a North Coast line. And so that remains an obstacle. But what Carney is trying to do is elevate this beyond the old arguments. And I think for his purposes right now, it is a better answer than what Hodgson gave, and I think allows the private sector to understand what the rules of the road are now.
So Corey's shaking his head here. So was I. She's mentioning mercury getting poured into the river or whatever. I mean, I just mentioned the dirty coal plant. This one here, Prince Rupert, I only say that because obviously the Liberals will vilify everything and anything if it fits their narrative. But then if this dirty coal plant here is in their own favor, then they don't care about it. This is right on the ocean. Every time it rains, this stuff is going to seep into the ocean. Heavy metals wash off of this.
It's as clear as mud what's going on, right? So it depends who you're listening to on what day. Like the political minister for British Columbia for this government was on the hurly-burly not a week ago saying with no more pipelines. We've had other members of the cabinet say no more pipelines. You have, reports of assurances that tanker bans will be lifted and that the caps will be lifted coming from Carney to various premiers. And then, ambiguity in the press conference that you just heard. They're doing this dance of the seven veils here around this stuff. And if you're trying to say at the same time that you want to attract private capital and private sector proponents for this, well, just shoveling more and more ambiguity on what the regulatory framework are and what the rules that those will be operated in, it almost makes you feel like you're killing the projects before they can even come forward. Like, who is going to propose a new pipeline to the West Coast without assurances that the tanker ban will be lifted? No one is the answer. Nobody. And so, they've got to get clear about this. And I'll come back to what I said earlier. I think the lack of clarity isn't that Mark Carney doesn't understand that markets need certainty in order to make investments. I think it's that he also understands that his caucus and his cabinet are very divided on these issues and that those need to be reconciled. You've seen some, former cabinet ministers sort of shunted out the door to diplomatic posts. There's rumors of more of that coming down the pipe. Maybe they're waiting for that before, giving clarity on this because it is so divisive within the ranks. But, clarity needs to come. And this, for it, against it, depending on who you're talking to, that's not helping. It's not helping.
Scott's also.
You notice that there? He said more people. There are rumors that are being kicked out the door. Mark Carney's going to bring in more of his A-team. He wants to bring in more of his good buddies who are bankers and investors. These rich guys that he knows, his rich elitist buddies, his globalist buddies. He doesn't want to help enrich Karina Gould, Mark Miller. He couldn't give a crap about those people. He wants buddies like Doug Guzman, Goldman Sachs buddy and a Harvard buddy, next to him. This guy getting $679,000 a year to be the chief executive officer of Defense Investment Agency. Does this guy get a bonus? He'd be upwards of double Mark Carney's salary. He's going to keep some of these people around like Melanie Joly, probably Anita Nand and Dominic LeBlanc. But a lot of these people, like the immigration minister, she's going to get chucked out the door. She's absolutely useless. Same with Gary Anasandri. He brought in Michael Sabia. So he's keeping all these guys, Marc-Andre Blanchard and Francois Philippe Champagne. So you'll see more like Doug Guzman, Tim Hodgson, also another Goldman Sachs buddy. So Carney's going to bring in his A-team and he wants to enrich his A-team, all his banker buddies.
I'm shaking my head because our friend Corey is, yanking his lovely white hair out at the roots. And how come? You're talking about there's a need for clarity. This whole discussion is littered with ambiguity. The ambiguity originates from a premier who's put forward a proposal that is not a proposal. Where is the financial banking? Where is the private sector proponent? Where is the effort to conjure up some kind of consensus among the communities that might be affected, among Indigenous leaders in communities that might be affected? None of those steps have been taken, not one stitch.
Not one stitch. China just came out and said they would buy the oil if it was available. Do we want to turn down billions of dollars of profits per year as a nation? Are we that dumb?
All we have is a proposal that says, this is our idea. Either support it or it's evidence that Canada doesn't work. Do it. Do this pipeline, or Canada gets it in the throat. Like, that is where the ambiguity is originating. Carney is being smart, calm. He's not worried a damn about divisions within his caucus or cabinet. This guy is large and in charge. If he says we're doing it...
This guy doesn't care because he's invested in America. These pundits like Scott Reed are too stupid to do some research to realize that Mark Carney doesn't care about Canada. 91%, 514 stocks. He's got 3 in Canada, 0.53% in our country. He shouldn't be allowed to be prime minister.
The tanker ban is being lifted. There won't be a pipe out of his caucus or cabinet. So that's not the issue. The issue is, why would he accept responsibility for this project? Why would he take on this proposal when it meets none of the conditions, has none of the details that you would expect that he has demanded of these major projects, and then say, and yes, I will pre-approve a whole series of things on the basis of a proposal that has been made. He is wisely placing the pressure back on the premier to put some meat into this sandwich to clear up the lack of clarity there Corey's talking about, and to remove the ambiguity that exists.
Look, he's also pushing another decision to be made, and that is the final investment decision on pathways and on carbon sequestration and storage in the oil sands. And that's
a dumb project that doesn't produce anything. We suck carbon out of the air, we stick it in the ground, and we get nothing for it. It costs us a lot of money to do nothing. Why don't you just plant some trees? Trudeau was supposed to plant, 1 billion trees? He did nothing. He planted like 1 million, and that was it. Why would we do that? They say it'll make us more business competitive. With who? The UK? Exports to the UK are $667 million a year. It's not that much. Why would we change how our energy projects operate to just do business with 1 or 2 countries? That makes no sense when there's global demand for oil and gas.
What he is trying to do is say, look, we do need to make those emissions reductions. And regardless of which environmental rules that we repeal, or the tanker ban, or other things, that needs to be in place. So he needs a signal from the private sector, and some of the moves that he has made, you can see he is pushing them to make that decision as well.
The reason why he's pushing that is because he's invested in ConocoPhillips and ExxonMobil and Canadian Natural Resources, 3 companies invested in the Pathways project, 3 companies he will make more money off of. They don't do any research. They go on this panel and they look like a bunch of buffoons. Sometimes I feel like I'm talking into a padded room, like I must be crazy. Pathways project is right here. ExxonMobil, ConocoPhillips, Canadian Natural Resources. These are 3 companies a part of the Pathways project. I have all the links here. You can click the little icon on the top here, moosechart.com. You can look it up yourself. Don't trust me. Take a look for yourself. It's right here. Pathways project is not viable. Expert warns. Straight from their own website here. Pathways Alliance. ConocoPhillips Canada. ExxonMobil owns Imperial, aka they're the same thing.
Well, this notion that Scott is talking about, we need to see a proposal before anyone can evaluate it. Maybe he needs to send a memo, the Prime Minister, to his ministers, who have had no problem saying that we don't need another pipeline. In the case of Gregor Robertson, who's only the political minister for this government in BC. So, he didn't need to see a proposal to say that there doesn't need to be a pipeline. Same for Stephen Guilbeault. So there are elements of this government that aren't waiting for a proposal to crap all over the idea of additional pipelines. They're happy to stick to, what was essentially the Justin Trudeau line. This isn't the Justin Trudeau government, in my view, but I'm not sure all of the members of that caucus and that cabinet have realized that that's the case. I think there's some of them that are stuck in the past.
Comes down to it, Carney will only do a pipeline if it either makes him look good, like the Keystone XL, which he'll tie to the Pathways project, because then him and potentially Tim Hodgson can make money off of it, or it won't happen at all.